Here's a date Microsoft would probably rather you forget. October 14th, 2025. That was the day the most used desktop operating system in human history was officially declared dead. No breaking news banner, no farewell broadcast, no siren. Just a final cumulative update pushed silently onto hundreds of millions of machines around the world, and then nothing. No more security patches. No more fixes, no more support. The system running your bank's back office, your school's computer lab, your local hospital's front desk switched off overnight. And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Most people didn't even notice. So before we go any further, let me ask you something. If one company can pull the plug on the software running well over half the world's computers and almost nobody reacts, then who's actually in control here? You or them? Hold on to that question, because everything in the next few minutes builds toward the answer. To understand where Windows is heading next, you have to understand exactly how it got here, and none of this happened by accident. Rewind a few decades. There was a time when Windows meant something closer to freedom. Windows 95 gave the world a digital front door. Windows XP became so stable that entire industries built their infrastructure on top of it. You bought it once, installed it, and it was yours. No telemetry dashboard, no cloud login begging for your attention every time you open a settings menu. Microsoft wasn't renting you software back then. They were selling your ownership. And that quiet promise that a computer could genuinely belong to you is part of what built the modern working world. Then, one decision at a time, that promise got dismantled. Look at what October 2025 actually did to real people. Multiple independent trackers showed the majority of Windows users were still running Windows 10 well into late 2025. Microsoft didn't retire some forgotten legacy product nobody used anymore. They cut support for the operating system. The majority of their own user base still depended on every single day. And their answer to those hundreds of millions of people was simple. Upgrade to Windows 11 or pay to stay. Protected. Because Windows 11 demands a TPM 2.0 security chip and a modern processor, requirements that leave millions of perfectly fast, perfectly functional computers officially labeled unsupported. Machines that boot in seconds, machines that do everything their owners need, suddenly stamped obsolete. Not because they broke, because Microsoft decided they should be. And if you wanted to keep an unsupported Windows 10 machine safe after that cutoff, Microsoft did build a program for that. It's called Extended Security Updates, or ESU. And for the first time ever, they opened it up to ordinary consumers, not just corporations who'd used versions of this program for Windows 7. The original deal was simple and a little uncomfortable. 1 extra year of security patches running through October 2026. To get it, you could pay $30, redeem 1,000 Microsoft rewards points, or sign in with a Microsoft account and sync your settings to their cloud. Even the free option quietly pulled you deeper into their ecosystem. Community groups nicknamed it perfectly at the time, a snooze button, not a solution. A stopgap designed to buy Microsoft time while it slowly herded people toward new hardware or a new subscription. Notice the psychology here, because it's never framed as pressure, it's always framed as protection. Your PC will become vulnerable. Stay safe, upgrade now. Fear, dressed up as customer care. And the migration numbers tell the real story underneath the marketing. Independent analysts found Windows 11 took roughly 4 years to cross 50% adoption, compared to about 3 years for Windows 10 at the equivalent point in its life. People weren't rushing toward the new Windows. They were being dragged toward it, one full-screen nag prompt at a time. Every warning that your machine is at risk. Every countdown clock toward a deadline. It's all part of one strategy. Move millions of people off the thing they own and onto the thing they rent. Because in the modern Microsoft playbook, you're not really a customer anymore. You're a conversion metric on a slide deck. But here's where the story gets genuinely interesting, and where I need to bring you something that happened far more recently than most coverage of this topic has caught up to. Just weeks ago, without a press release, without a keynote, without so much as a blog post announcement, Microsoft quietly edited its own Windows 10 ESU support page. The free consumer ESU program, originally set to expire in October 2026, was extended again, this time through October 2027. Anyone already enrolled rolled over automatically, no action needed. When Bleeping Computer asked Microsoft about it directly, the company's official line was that this reflects their ongoing commitment to helping customers stay secure during the transition, giving people more time and flexibility to find the best PC for their needs. Sit with that for a second, because it's a genuinely strange thing for a company to do it quietly. Microsoft has now given Windows 10 users a second free year of protection nobody was promised, announced through. Then in March 2026, Devoluri went further, publishing what read almost like a peace offering to the user base, a post titled "Our Commitment to Windows Quality," explicitly acknowledging the pain points people had been shouting about for years. And this wasn't just talk. By May 2026, reporting confirmed Microsoft had quietly removed the Ask Copilot button from the snipping tool, and the Photos app entirely. And in Notepad, the colorful Copilot logo sitting in the corner had been stripped away, with the underlying generative feature renamed to the far less flashy Writing Tools. Internally, the company was reportedly running something called a swarming strategy, redirecting engineering resources specifically toward fixing reliability and performance, instead of chasing new AI surface area. Think about how extraordinary that actually is. A $1 trillion company forced into a public retreat, not by a competitor, not by a regulator, not by a lawsuit, but by its own users simply refusing to be treated as a testing ground for half-finished ideas. For one brief moment, ordinary people had real leverage and they used it. But a retreat isn't a surrender. Because while Microsoft was busy apologizing for the AI clutter on your desktop and quietly extending Windows 10's lifeline behind the scenes, it was building something far bigger somewhere else entirely. A place where your desktop doesn't fully belong to you at all anymore. And that's exactly where the next chapter of this story and the future of Windows, actually begins. Not on your desktop, in the cloud. That's next. So where does the real fight actually move next? Not to your desktop, to the cloud. And this is the part almost nobody outside of enterprise IT circles has been talking about, because while everyone was busy arguing over Copilot buttons and Notepad logos, Microsoft was quietly rebuilding what a Windows PC even means at a foundational level. Back in 2021, Microsoft launched something called Windows 365, a cloud PC. Not a synced backup, not a remote desktop app bolted onto your existing machine. A full running copy of Windows that doesn't live on your hardware at all. It lives on Microsoft's servers inside Azure, and it streams to whatever screen you happen to be holding at the time. A laptop, a tablet, even a cheap thin client box. Then, in late 2025, Microsoft released a dedicated piece of hardware to go with it, Windows 365 Link, a small physical box whose entire job is to boot straight into the cloud, storing almost nothing locally on the device itself. Read that. Back slowly. A computer. Sold to you, specifically engineered to own nothing. And at Microsoft's Build Developer Conference in June 2026, CEO Satya Nadella stood on stage and made the long-term direction unmistakable. The operating system itself, he signaled, is becoming an intelligent agent layer rather than just a place where you personally click and type. Microsoft didn't stop at concept talk either. They launched Windows 365 for agents, now generally available, giving AI agents their own private Windows sessions running in the cloud. So those agents can click, type, and carry out multi-step tasks on your behalf without you sitting in front of the screen at all. Here's why that detail should genuinely make the hair on your neck stand up. Convenience has always come at the price of control, and this is about as clean a proof of that trade-off as modern computing has produced. When your entire computer lives on someone else's servers, you no longer own your software. You no longer fully own your files, at least not in the old sense of a folder. Sitting on a drive in your house, you no longer own your work environment. You're renting access to your own digital life, and the moment you stop paying, or the moment the terms quietly change, all of it can simply be switched off. Exactly like Windows 10 was switched off on October 14th, 2025. The pattern is identical, just scaled up. First, the industry moved you from owning software outright to subscribing to it month by month. Now, the direction of travel is moving you from owning a computer to subscribing to one entirely. And Microsoft isn't out here alone on this. Apple quietly routes more and more of your device experience through iCloud continuity features. Google's entire Chrome OS and workspace strategy has lived almost completely inside a browser tab for over a decade already. The broader industry is marching in roughly the same direction, toward a future where the physical device in your hands matters less and less, and the account attached to it matters more and more. Ask yourself honestly, when's the last time you actually fully owned something on your own computer with no login, no subscription, no cloud dependency attached to it? Or has that kind of ownership already quietly becomes a memory for most people without anyone formally announcing it? Now bring that back to the quiet Windows 10 ESU extension we talked about at the start of this video, because I think it actually makes a lot more sense once you see it sitting next to Windows 365 for agents. Microsoft isn't extending free security patches for millions of aging Windows 10 machines purely out of generosity toward people who don't want to upgrade. They're buying themselves. Every extra year those old machines stay technically secure enough to keep running is another year those users stay inside the Microsoft account ecosystem, syncing settings to OneDrive, redeeming rewards points, logging in with a support page edit instead of a stage presentation. That's not typically what a company does when its migration strategy is working exactly as planned. So the real question isn't just why Windows 10 was killed off in the first place, It's why, less than a year later, Microsoft appears to be walking part of that decision back without ever admitting it out loud. And to understand that, we need to talk about what actually happened to Windows 11 in the months between those two dates, because it's a story of a company that didn't just lose users to old hardware. It lost their trust entirely, and it happened in full public view. That's next. The moment that trust actually broke had a name. It was called recall. Picture this. In 2024, Microsoft unveiled a feature that would quietly screenshot everything you did on your PC. Every message, every password field, every private document, every window you opened, all stored, so an AI could search back through your entire digital life on demand. Microsoft called it a revolutionary productivity tool. Security researchers called it something else entirely, after demonstrating that Recall's local database was left exposed enough that ordinary malware could walk in and lift a complete visual diary of someone's life. The backlash was severe enough that Microsoft delayed the feature by an entire year. When it finally crept back in 2025, it arrived turned off by default, buried behind biometric sign-in, treated by most cautious users like something you'd rather not enable at all. And here's the question that should stop you cold. Who actually asked for this? Who woke up one morning and thought, I wish my computer secretly photographed everything I do? Nobody did. And that's the entire point, because Recall wasn't a mistake. It was a preview of the strategy. Instead of learning from that disaster, Microsoft spent the following months doing the same thing everywhere else. Copilot got shoved into Notepad, into Paint, into File Explorer, into Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, where a floating Copilot button started covering the actual cells people were trying to work in, until users said the button alone made them resent the software. Microsoft even added a dedicated Copilot key to physical keyboards, replacing a button people actually used. The internet noticed, and the nickname that stuck through late 2025 and into 2026 was brutal and impossible to unhear. People started calling it Microslop, low-effort AI filler forced onto billions of machines whether anyone wanted it there or not. Now let's get to the numbers, because the data here is more damning than any single opinion. A former Microsoft vice president, who spent over a decade inside the company, publicly revealed that only about 3.3% of Microsoft 365 users actually pay for Copilot. Not 33%, 3.3. Microsoft's own web version of Copilot has been stuck around roughly 1% market share, while Google's Gemini keeps pulling further ahead. Hardware makers spent billions building dedicated AI chips, NPUs, into millions of new laptops, only to have Dell itself essentially admit that most consumers weren't buying devices because of AI features at all. Billions of dollars, an entire branding strategy plastered across every corner of the screen, and almost nobody actually using it. So ask yourself honestly, if customers don't want it and customers aren't paying for it, who exactly is Windows being built for right now? The uncomfortable answer looks a lot less like you and a lot more like shareholders who need to see a return on all that AI spending. And when people finally pushed back hard, Microsoft gave us the clearest confession yet. In November 2025, Pavan Davuluri, Microsoft's president of Windows and Devices, posted publicly that Windows was evolving into an agentic OS connecting devices, cloud, and AI to unlock intelligent productivity. The reaction was immediate and overwhelmingly negative. Thousands of furious replies rejecting the entire premise, forcing him to disable comments on the post entirely. One reply summarized the mood of any entire generation of users perfectly. Nobody asked for this, and everyone wants to know how to turn it off. That's not the sound of innovation being celebrated. That's the sound of trust collapsing in real time, in public, under a corporate executive's own name. Microsoft even had to pull one of its own Copilot advertisements offline that same month, after the AI shown in the ad fumbled. A task as basic as making on-screen text bigger, a mistake ordinary viewers caught within seconds of the clip going up, and the financial numbers backed up the damage. In Microsoft's own earnings reporting around that period, the division covering Windows, Surface, and gaming underperformed, even as the company's cloud business kept booming elsewhere. So by late January 2026, something genuinely remarkable happened. Microsoft blinked publicly. Reporting at the time confirmed the company was pausing new Copilot button rollouts, reviewing whether to strip AI branding out of apps like Notepad and Paint entirely, and pivoting toward what internal teams were calling performance fundamentals for the year ahead, essentially a promise to make Windows work properly again before adding anything else to it.